The grand hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with laughter. It wasn't the kind, welcoming sort of laughter. It was the harsh, mocking kind that echoed off the crystal walls and made the human delegation shift uncomfortably in their seats. Commander James Miller stood straight-backed at the podium, his weathered face showing no emotion as the various alien representatives continued their loud amusement. His gray uniform, adorned with Earth's new Space Force insignia, remained crisp despite the 3 hours of standing through what was supposed to be a simple announcement. "You expect us to believe," wheezed the bug-like representative from the Crystal Worlds, "that your species, barely able to reach your own moon 60 years ago, has suddenly mastered seventh-dimensional travel." Miller's blue eyes remained steady. "We don't expect you to believe anything. We're merely informing the Council, as required by interstellar law, that we will be launching our first seventh-dimensional vessel next month." This brought another wave of laughter. Even the usually stoic rock people were shaking, their stone surfaces grinding against each other in their version of chuckling. The Council High Speaker, a tall being made of shifting silver clouds, raised his glowing staff for silence. "Commander Miller," he spoke, his voice dripping with fake kindness, "perhaps you misunderstand. Even our most advanced races have only managed to harness fifth-dimensional travel. The mathematics alone for seventh-dimensional calculations would require computers the size of your solar system." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "With all due respect, High Speaker, we've solved that problem." "Impossible," shouted someone from the back. "Their brains are too simple. They still use verbal communication." Miller reached into his pocket and pulled out a small holographic projector. With a click, it displayed the Infinity's Edge, humanity's first seventh-dimensional vessel. The ship looked deceptively simple, sleek, dark blue, with lines that seemed to bend in impossible ways. Those who looked at it too long reported feeling slightly dizzy. "The Infinity's Edge will launch from Jupiter Station on the 15th of next month," Miller continued, his voice clear and professional. "We welcome observers from any council races who wish to witness the event." The High Speaker leaned forward, his cloudy form rippling with barely contained amusement. "Commander, we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm for joining the galactic community, but perhaps you should focus on mastering fourth-dimensional travel first. Your current ships are charming, but they're practically ancient technology by our standards." Miller thought about the hidden tests beneath Jupiter's storms, where the Infinity's Edge had already made several successful jumps through dimensions that the Council claimed were impossible to reach. He thought about Dr. Cooper's breakthrough, combining human intuition with mathematical principles that the alien supercomputers had overlooked because they were too illogical. "We appreciate your concern," Miller replied diplomatically. "However, the launch will proceed as scheduled." A small green alien in the front row, shaped like a walking tree, raised its branch-like appendage. "And when your ship fails to activate, when your crew sits there pressing buttons that do nothing, will Earth finally admit it needs proper guidance from the advanced races?" Miller gathered his papers, tucking them neatly into his folder. "We'll see you all next month. Those who wish to observe can register with our embassy." He stepped down from the podium, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet hall. As he walked out with his small team, the laughter resumed behind them. Linda, his communications officer, looked up at him with concern. "They really don't believe us, sir." "Good," Miller replied, allowing himself a real smile now that they were away from the council chambers. "That's exactly how we want it." Unknown to the still laughing council, deep beneath the swirling clouds of Jupiter, the Infinity's Edge hummed with power in its secret dock. Its systems pulsed with energy that the advanced races had never dreamed possible, preparing for a demonstration that would change the galaxy forever. The council could laugh all they wanted. In just 1 month, that laughter would stop. Deep within Jupiter's swirling storms, hidden from prying alien eyes, Dr. Alice Cooper stood before the massive viewing window of Research Station Deep 6. Her reflection showed a tired woman in her 40s, with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too many sleepless nights. But today, those eyes sparkled with triumph. Through the reinforced glass, the Infinity's edge floated in its secret dock. The ship's dark blue hull seemed to bend reality around it, making maintenance workers look like they were walking on curved paths even when moving in straight lines. This visual distortion was just a tiny hint of the vessel's true power. Final calibration test, starting in 5 minutes, announced the station's hour. Alice took a sip from her coffee mug, her hand trembling slightly with excitement rather than caffeine. Robert Wilson, the lead engineer, walked up beside her. His work uniform was stained with the special cooling fluid they used for the dimensional drives. Ready to prove those stuck-up aliens wrong, Doc? More than ready, Alice replied, watching as the ship's surface began to ripple like water. Have you seen the latest messages from the Council? They're still laughing about Commander Miller's announcement. Robert snorted. They won't be laughing much longer. Did you hear what the Crystal World's representative said? That the math would need computers the size of our solar system. He pulled out a small device from his pocket. It wasn't much bigger than an old smartphone. If they only knew we solved it with this. The device was humanity's greatest secret, a quantum computer that used human brainwave patterns to solve seventh-dimensional equations. The aliens' mistake had been trying to brute force the calculations. Humans had instead found a way to intuitively understand higher dimensions, using their minds to guide the computational process. 2 minutes to calibration, the AI reminded them. Below, technicians cleared the dock. The Infinity's edge's surface now rippled constantly, like a flag in an invisible wind. The ship wasn't just moving through normal space. It was shifting slightly through different dimensional planes, preparing for its full activation. Control room, everyone, Alice called out. The observation deck quickly filled with the core research team. These weren't just scientists and engineers. They were people specially chosen for their ability to perceive dimensional anomalies without getting sick. Less than 1 in a million humans had this gift. 30 seconds. Alice picked up the main control tablet. The screen showed readings that would have looked like nonsense to most aliens, and even to most humans. But to her team, they made perfect sense. Beginning calibration, she announced. Phase 1. Dimensional anchor point establishment. The ship's hull suddenly stopped rippling. Instead, it began to fade, becoming slightly transparent. Through its ghost-like form, they could see other versions of the ship, millions of them, all occupying the same space, but in different dimensional planes. Phase 2. Dimensional resonance matching. The multiple versions of the ship started to sync up, moving in perfect harmony. The sight would have driven most beings mad, but Alice's team had trained for years to handle these impossible views of reality. Phase 3. Power grid stabilization. Energy readings spiked on the monitors. The ship was now drawing power from multiple dimensions simultaneously, another feat the Council had declared impossible. The lights in the station flickered briefly as the power draw peaked. Final phase. Dimensional matrix lock. With a soft hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, the Infinity's edge snapped back into full visibility. It looked solid again, but something about it had changed. The ship now cast shadows in directions that shouldn't exist, and small objects near it fell in curved paths as space itself bent around the vessel. Calibration complete, the AI announced. All systems nominal. Dimensional matrix stable at 7+ integrity. The room burst into applause. Years of work, countless failures, and endless ridicule from the galactic community had led to this moment. They had done it. Humans had not only cracked seventh-dimensional travel, they had mastered it. Alice's tablet beeped with an incoming message from Commander Miller. Council observers arriving next week. Show them only what they expect to see. She smiled, typing back a quick response. Don't worry. They won't know what hit them when launch day comes. Robert looked at the ship with pride. 1 month, he said quietly. 1 month until we show the galaxy what humanity can really do. Alice nodded, watching the impossible shadows dance around their creation. The aliens thought humans were primitive, simple-minded beings who needed guidance and supervision. Soon, they would learn that sometimes the simplest minds could solve the most complex problems. And this was just the beginning. The Infinity's edge cut smoothly through space at the edge of the Orion Arm, running what was supposed to be a simple test flight. Commander Miller stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by through the main viewport. Everything had gone perfectly for the first 3 hours, too perfectly. "Sir," called out Tom from the radar station, his voice tense. "3 ships just dropped out of 5th-dimensional space. Council markings." Miller's jaw tightened. They weren't supposed to meet any council ships here. This was neutral space, far from regular patrol routes. "Show me." The main screen lit up with images of 3 battleships. They were massive compared to the Infinity's edge, their crystalline hulls gleaming with stored energy. The lead ship was easily 5 times their size. "They're hailing us," Linda reported from communications. "Put them through." The screen changed to show a Crystal World captain, his faceted head glittering with barely contained amusement. "Human vessel," he said, not bothering to hide his mocking tone. "This is Captain Firstlight of the Council Defense Force. We've come to provide you with a helpful demonstration of proper spacefaring conduct." Miller kept his face neutral. "We appreciate your offer, Captain, but we're conducting authorized test flights in neutral space. We don't require assistance." "Oh, but we insist." First Light's crystal face sparkled with cruel humor. "After all, we can't have primitive vessels endangering proper traffic lanes. Prepare to be escorted back to Earth." The 3 battleships moved to surround the Infinity's edge in a triangle formation. Their weapon ports were open, not directly threatening, but a clear show of force. "Sir," Robert called from engineering, his voice low and urgent. "The dimensional drive is ready. We haven't tested it in combat conditions, but—" Miller looked at his crew. They hadn't planned to reveal their true capabilities yet, but the council ships weren't leaving them much choice. "Battle stations," he ordered quietly. "All hands prepare for dimensional shift." Warning lights flashed as the crew strapped into their specially designed seats. These weren't ordinary chairs. They were built to keep their occupants sane while experiencing multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Human vessel." First Light's voice came again. "Power down your engines and prepare for towing. We wouldn't want your primitive systems to malfunction and hurt someone." Miller smiled for the first time since the council ships appeared. "You're right, Captain. We wouldn't want anyone to get hurt. That's why I suggest you back away." "Now." Laughter echoed through the communication channel. "Or what? Will you fire your outdated weapons at our shields? Please, demonstrate your species' charming attempts at—" "Dimensional drive engaged," Robert announced. The Infinity's edge's hull began to ripple, just as it had during testing. The council ships immediately stopped laughing. Their sensors must have been going crazy as the human vessel began to exist in multiple dimensional planes at once. What is this?" First Light demanded, his crystalline face losing its sparkle. "What are you doing?" "Demonstrating proper spacefaring conduct," Miller replied calmly. "Dimensional shift in 3, 2, 1. The Infinity's edge shifted. To outside observers, it seemed to blur and then vanish, leaving behind a space that hurt to look at. The council ship's sensors couldn't track it because it now existed in 7th-dimensional space, far beyond their 5th-dimensional capabilities. "Impossible," First Light shouted. No human vessel could. His voice cut off as the Infinity's edge reappeared behind all 3 ships simultaneously, a feat that should have broken every law of physics the Council knew. The human vessel was somehow maintaining a presence in multiple positions across space-time. "As you can see," Miller said, his voice still perfectly calm, "we don't require an escort. In fact, I suggest you report back to the Council that maybe, just maybe, they should revise their opinions about human capabilities." The Council ship's weapons had powered up during the confrontation, but now they faced a problem. Their targeting systems couldn't lock onto something that existed in 7 dimensions at once. Their advanced 5th-dimensional sensors were worse than useless. They were giving readings that were driving their gunners mad. "We, first," Light's voice shook. "We will report this." "Please do," Miller replied. "And next time, ask before offering your assistance." The Council ships retreated quickly, their crews probably struggling to understand what they'd just witnessed. As they vanished into 5th-dimensional space, Miller turned to his crew. "Well," he said with a slight smile, "I guess we tested the combat capabilities after all." The crew of the Infinity's Edge felt it first in their bones, a deep, humming sensation that seemed to vibrate through multiple versions of their own bodies at once. Their special training was the only thing keeping them from losing their minds as reality began to split into 7 different layers before their eyes. "Dimensional drive at full power," Robert reported from engineering. His voice seemed to echo from several places at once, each syllable rippling through different dimensions, all systems holding stable. Commander Miller watched as his hands appeared to exist in multiple places simultaneously. Years of training had prepared him for this sight, but it still felt strange. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to fold and unfold like paper, revealing depths that normal human eyes were never meant to see. "Status report," he ordered, his voice steady despite the bizarre sensations washing over him. Linda's fingers danced across her console, leaving trails of light through multiple dimensions. "Council ships are trying to track us, sir. Their sensors can't handle the dimensional distortion. We're getting readings that they're experiencing severe system malfunctions." The Infinity's Edge now floated in a space between spaces, existing in 7 dimensions at once. To the Council ship's 5th-dimensional sensors, it would appear as an impossible object, something that broke every law of physics they understood. "Show me their view," Miller commanded. The main screen flickered to life, showing what the Council ship's cameras were recording. The Infinity's Edge appeared as a shifting, ghostly shape that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Parts of the ship phased in and out of normal space-time, making it look like a glitch in reality. "Sir," Tom called from his station, his voice tight with concentration. "I'm seeing everything. All possible positions, all possible moments. It's..." He trailed off, overwhelmed by the flood of information. Miller understood. Through their 7th-dimensional perspective, they could see not just where things were, but where they could be, had been, and might be. Space and time spread out before them like pages in a book, readable from any angle. "Engineering, how's the hull integrity?" Miller asked, keeping his crew focused on their tasks rather than the mind-bending view. Robert's laugh echoed strangely through the dimensions. "Better than we ever hoped, sir. The dimensional fields are perfectly stable. We could maintain this state for weeks if needed." Through the viewport, Miller watched as one of the Council ships fired a warning shot. The energy beam passed harmlessly through one of the many spaces where the Infinity's Edge both was and wasn't. It was like trying to shoot a shadow with a flashlight. "Dimensional mapping complete," announced the ship's eye. "We are successfully existing in dimensions 1 through 7 simultaneously. Council vessels are limited to dimensions 1 through 5. They quite literally cannot touch us." The bridge crew watched in fascination as their bodies adjusted to the new reality. They could see the subtle threads that connected all things through higher dimensions, the impossible geometries that made up what simpler beings called space-time. Their specially trained minds processed these sights without breaking, turning what should have been maddening chaos into understandable patterns. "Sir," Linda called out, "we're receiving confused transmissions from the Council ships. Their crews are reporting severe headaches and visual distortions just from trying to look at us." Miller nodded. They had expected this. Normal beings, even advanced aliens, couldn't process the sight of a 7-dimensional object. Their brains simply weren't wired for it. Only humans, with their unique ability to adapt and their special training, could handle these perspectives without losing their sanity. "Take us into position," Miller ordered. Let's show them exactly what a primitive species can do. The infinity's edge moved through dimensions like a swimmer through water, sliding between layers of reality with impossible grace. To the council ships, it would appear to be in multiple places at once, each position as real as the last. As they settled into their new dimensional state, Miller felt a deep pride in his crew and his species. Humans hadn't just matched the advanced races, they'd surpassed them in ways the Council had never imagined possible. Remember, he told his crew, this is just the beginning. We're rewriting the laws of physics as the galaxy understands them. And we're just getting started. The Council's emergency meeting chamber was dead silent. Gone were the laughs, the mocking smiles, and the condescending looks. Instead, fear and awe filled the massive room as the recordings from the Council battleships played on the main screen. The images showed the Infinity's edge performing what should have been impossible. The human ship existed in multiple places at once, its form breaking every known law of physics. Even the recording itself seemed unstable, the visual feed distorting whenever it tried to focus on the vessel. High Speaker's cloudy form had turned a pale gray, a sign of extreme distress among his kind. "Play the sensor readings again," he ordered, his voice barely a whisper. The data scrolled across the screens. Numbers that made no sense. Readings that contradicted each other. Energy patterns that shouldn't exist. The Council's best scientists stood nearby, their faces showing a mix of horror and fascination. "Impossible," muttered the head scientist, a tall being made of pure energy. "Their ship isn't just traveling through the seventh dimension. It's existing in all 7 dimensions simultaneously. The power required. The mathematical complexity." He shook his glowing head. "We calculated it would take computers the size of a solar system." The Crystal World representative, who had laughed the loudest at the human announcement, spoke up. "But they did it. Somehow, these primitives did what we thought impossible. The question is, how?" At that moment, the chamber doors opened. Commander Miller walked in, along with Dr. Cooper and Engineer Wilson. The Council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The humans they had mocked just days ago now held power that none of them could comprehend. "Thank you for calling this emergency session," Miller said calmly, taking his place at the podium. "I assume you've all seen the recordings." Commander Miller, the High Speaker, began, his tone completely different from their last meeting. We admit we may have underestimated humanity's capabilities. What we've seen is beyond our understanding." Alice stepped forward, her tablet displaying complex equations that seemed to move and shift on their own. "Your mistake," she said, "was thinking that 7th dimensional travel required brute force computation. We found a different way." The head scientist leaned forward. "Please, explain." "Human minds," Robert added, "are uniquely capable of understanding dimensional complexity through intuition rather than pure mathematics. We didn't need computers the size of solar systems. We just needed to think differently." The screens around the chamber now showed the Infinity's edge in action. The ship flickered between dimensions, its very presence causing ripples in spacetime. Several council members had to look away, their minds unable to process what they were seeing. "The power requirements alone, the energy being started, are minimal," Alice interrupted. "When you understand how to surf dimensional waves rather than fight them, your ships brute force their way through the 5th dimension. We learned to dance through the 7th. The recordings continued playing. They showed how conventional weapons passed harmlessly through the human ship, how it could appear in multiple locations simultaneously, how it bent reality around itself without effort. "And this," Miller said quietly, "is just our first ship, our prototype." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The High Speaker's cloudy form rippled with concern. "First ship. We thought it best to start small," Miller explained with a slight smile. "To test the waters, so to speak. Now that we know it works." He let the sentence hang. The implications hit the Council like a physical force. If this was just a prototype, what else were the humans capable of? What other impossible feats had they achieved while the galaxy laughed at them? The infinity's edge, Alice continued, represents a fundamental shift in how we understand reality. We're not just traveling through dimensions, we're existing in all of them at once. And we're ready to share this knowledge with those who are willing to treat us as equals. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, the High Speaker spoke, his voice heavy with understanding. It seems we have much to learn from you. Miller nodded. Yes, he said simply. You do. The laughter had stopped. The mockery was over. In its place was a new reality, one where humanity stood not as primitives to be guided, but as pioneers who had charted paths through dimensions that their superiors had never dreamed possible. And they were just getting started. The distress call echoed through 7 dimensions of space. A civilian transport, carrying families from various species, was under attack by space pirates. The council ships were too far away to help, but the Infinity's edge wasn't. Multiple hostile ships detected, Tom announced from his station. 12 pirate vessels surrounding the transport. They're using old council tech, 5th-dimensional drives, and particle weapons. Commander Miller stood at the center of the bridge, his expression grim. Time to arrival. Conventional travel would take 20 minutes, Linda reported. But through 7th-dimensional space, she smiled. We can be there now. Miller nodded. Take us in. Full-dimensional spread. The Infinity's edge shifted, its hull rippling as it expanded its presence across multiple dimensions. The crew felt the familiar sensation of existing everywhere and nowhere at once. Through the viewport, space folded like paper, creating shortcuts through reality that only they could see. In an instant, they were there. The scene before them was chaos. The civilian transport, a large silver vessel, was surrounded by aggressive-looking pirate ships. Their weapons flashed, trying to disable the transport's engines. Sir, Robert called from engineering. We could easily destroy them with conventional weapons, but I have a better idea. Want to show them what 7th-dimensional tech can really do. Miller smiled. Proceed. The Infinity's edge began to glow, its hull shifting through multiple color spectrums as it existed across different dimensional planes. The pirate ship's sensors must have gone crazy, trying to track something that existed in more dimensions than they could perceive. What are they seeing? Miller asked. Linda pulled up the external view. From the pirate's perspective, the human ship seemed to multiply, appearing in dozens of places at once. Each copy was as real as the original, because, in 7th-dimensional space, they were all the same ship. Pirates are hailing us, Linda reported. Their leader sounds confused. Put them through. A rough-looking alien appeared on screen, his scaled face showing a mix of anger and fear. What kind of trick is this? Our sensors show you're everywhere at once. No trick, Miller replied calmly. This is your only warning. Release the transport and leave, or we demonstrate what a 7th-dimensional vessel can really do. The pirate leader laughed, but there was nervousness in his voice. There's 12 of us, and only one of you. Are you sure about that? Miller nodded to Robert. Show them. The Infinity's edge extended its dimensional field. Suddenly, sections of space around the pirate ships began to twist and fold. The pirates watched in horror as their weapons disappeared into dimensional pockets, reappearing as harmless dust. Their engines sputtered as the human ship manipulated the very fabric of space-time around them. What are you doing? The pirate leader demanded, real fear in his voice now. We're taking your ships for a little dimensional walk, Robert explained, his fingers dancing across his console. Right now, different parts of your vessels exist in different dimensions. Don't worry, we'll put them back together. Mostly. To demonstrate, he shifted the lead pirate ship's bow into the 6th dimension, while leaving its stern in the 4th. The vessel groaned as it existed in multiple dimensional planes at once, its crew experiencing a reality their minds couldn't process. Stop, the pirate leader screamed. We surrender. Miller leaned forward. "Release the transport. Now." The pirates couldn't comply fast enough. They disengaged their weapons and backed away from the civilian ship, their vessels shaking from the dimensional stress they'd experienced. As the pirates retreated, Miller turned to the civilian transport. "This is Commander Miller of the Earth vessel Infinity's Edge. You're safe now." The transport's captain responded, his voice filled with awe. We've never seen anything like that. You didn't fire a single shot." "But sometimes," Miller replied, "the best weapon isn't a weapon at all. It's showing your opponent that their understanding of reality is incomplete." The Infinity's Edge escorted the transport to safety, its presence in 7 dimensions serving as a shield against any further attacks. Word of the incident spread quickly through the galaxy. Tales of a human ship that could bend reality itself, defeating armed pirates without firing a single shot. The Council had laughed at humanity's claims. The pirates had learned the hard way that human ingenuity was no laughing matter. The Great Hall of Earth's Space Command had never held so many alien dignitaries. Where once they had laughed at humans, now they sat in respectful silence. The same beings who had mocked humanity's primitive understanding now waited eagerly to learn from them. Commander Miller stood at the podium, Dr. Cooper and Robert Wilson beside him. In the month since the pirate incident, the Infinity's Edge had become famous throughout the galaxy. Stories of its impossible abilities had spread to every corner of known space. "We appreciate the Council's formal apology," Miller began, his voice carrying through the packed hall. "And yes, we accept your request for a knowledge exchange program." The High Speaker's cloudy form brightened with relief. "The Council acknowledges that we severely underestimated humanity's potential. We offer unlimited resources for your research and development." Alice stepped forward, her tablet displaying a new set of equations that made several alien scientists gasp. "That's very generous," she said with a small smile. "But you should know, the Infinity's Edge was just the beginning." The room went completely silent. Even the crystal beings stopped their usual subtle shimming. "What do you mean?" asked the head scientist, his energy form flickering with excitement and fear. Robert activated a hologram in the center of the hall. It showed a new ship design, one that made the Infinity's Edge look simple in comparison. "While you were laughing at our 7th-dimensional vessel," he explained, "we were already working on this." The design rotated slowly in the air, its shape somehow more impossible than the Infinity's Edge. Parts of it seemed to exist in dimensions that couldn't be seen, only sensed. "This," Miller announced, "is our prototype for 9th-dimensional travel." The hall erupted in chaos. Aliens jumped from their seats, shouting questions and exclamations in dozens of languages. The High Speaker's cloud form turned almost white with shock. "9th dimension," he stammered. "But that's impossible." Alice finished for him. Like 7th-dimensional travel was impossible. She brought up another display, showing human test pilots training in special chambers. "We've already begun preparing crews. The human mind, it turns out, is remarkably adaptable. While your species focused on building bigger computers, we explored the power of consciousness itself." Robert stepped forward. "Our 9th-dimensional equations make 7th-dimensional math look like simple addition. But we've solved them. Not with massive computers, but with human intuition combined with quantum processing." The head scientist moved closer to examine the equations. This changes everything we thought we knew about reality." "Yes," Miller agreed. "It does. And we're willing to share this knowledge with those who are ready to learn." The Crystal World representative, who had once laughed the loudest at humans, spoke up. "What do you mean, ready to learn?" Miller's expression became serious. "It means understanding that progress doesn't always follow a straight line, that sometimes the species you think is primitive has simply found a different path forward. It means approaching the universe with humility." Alice nodded. "We're not interested in revenge for your mockery. We want partners who can think beyond conventional limits, who can dream as big as we do." The hologram changed, showing the vast expanse of the galaxy. Ninth-dimensional travel won't just change space exploration, Robert explained. It will change our understanding of existence itself. We're going to need everyone's help to handle that responsibility. The High Speaker moved forward, his cloudy form humble and sincere. We offer not just our apology, but our dedication to learning from you. Humanity has proven itself not just equal to the advanced races, but in many ways superior. Miller raised his hand. Not superior. Different. We found our own path. And now we invite you to walk it with us. As the aliens in the hall began to discuss this new reality among themselves, Miller looked out at the gathering. Just months ago, these beings had laughed at humanity's claims. Now they sat in Earth's hall, eager to learn the secrets of dimensions they had never dreamed of reaching. The laughter had stopped. The mockery was finished. In its place was something far more valuable: respect, partnership, and the promise of an adventure into realms of existence that no species had explored before. Humanity had not just proven itself. It had opened the door to a new age of discovery for all intelligent life. And this was just the beginning.